Hello, my name's Erika and I will be your facilitator for the duration of this course on resilience. It's a fact of life that we'll experience problems and stressful situations throughout life. These can be daily life challenges such as managing our finances or meeting work deadlines. These can be big life changes such as bringing new additions to the family, changing career, or moving into a new house. These can also be large, unexpected events such as death, disease, natural disasters that can happen without warning. This is all a natural part of life in an unpredictable and ever-changing world. However, we can learn how to deal with stress. This means staying flexible and calm in the face of distress, and these set of skills are called resilience. Resilience is the ability to bounce back after we've been knocked down. It's staying flexible in our thoughts, feelings, and behaviours so that we can emerge from difficult situations stronger, wiser, and more able. The attitude of resilience relies on the idea that we can't control what happens to us, but we can control how we react to it. In this way, we're able to separate two seemingly inseparable things. One is that bad things might happen, but two is that you always have a choice in how you deal with it. One key attitude of resilience is learning from mistakes and failures. This means that instead of seeing failures as final endings, we see them as problems that need to be solved. In this way, we can stay curious. We can set ourselves achievable and attainable and realistic goals so that we can stay thoughtful rather than reactive. By bringing new solutions to old problems, we're able to stay persistent and determined. Another quality of resilience is recognizing that we have choice. This means feeling more in control of our lives, not because life is particularly easy, but because we know that we can find the resources we need. If these qualities feel far away now, don't worry. As you go through the course, you'll develop these traits and qualities, and remember that they go hand in hand with emotional resilience. So the more you practice, the more resilient you'll feel. Emotions refer to how we feel. They're a combination of thoughts and physiological reactions that predispose us to act in particular ways. For example, when we feel happy, we might feel more expansive, more talkative, and we're more action-orientated. When we feel sad, we're more likely to feel contracted, we might be more likely to spend time alone, and when we walk, we may look at the floor more often. Emotions are incredibly embodied physical symptoms. For example, when we're angry, our face might go flushed, our heart beats faster, and our muscles might get tense. When we're afraid, our mouth goes dry and we might tremble. Emotions can either be positive, negative, healthy, or unhealthy. But it's useful to note that positive emotions aren't always healthy and negative emotions aren't always unhealthy. For example, happiness is generally seen as a positive emotion. But if we spend our life striving for happiness and pleasure at the expense of health, for example, we might consider happiness to be not so helpful. Grief, whilst it might be sad, may be healthy in the right context. If a loved one were to pass away and we didn't experience any sense of grief, sadness, or loss, we may need to explore what else is going on. Or we may conclude that they didn't mean that much to us. Positive emotions include the things we like, such as pleasure, happiness, joy, contentment, and excitement. Just get a sense in your body now what the difference might be between joy and happiness and fulfillment. More negative emotions include jealousy, anger, shame, fear, loss. But as we've already specified, within context, these are not bad or unhealthy. In truth, emotions are neither good nor bad. As long as they're reasonable for the context, we consider them healthy. And as long as negative emotions are really processed and worked through, they're useful within the broader context of life. So having a full life means being able to experience all of these emotions. We're not always used to being aware of our emotions. Sometimes we'll just say good or bad. Sometimes we'll say happy, sad, angry. And sometimes we're not even sure about how things make us feel. Getting in touch with our emotions is the first step to developing resilience. So as a short experiment, let's see how you're feeling right now. What are you feeling in this moment? How are you feeling it in your body? Where is it located? And what thoughts are you having that are related to this emotion? You can ask yourself these 4 questions at any time in your everyday life in order to explore what's going on for you in any moment. If you want, you may want to grab yourself a notebook, and at any time that you feel an emotion has been triggered, write down what the emotion is and the intensity of it on a scale from 1 to 5. Write down what event triggers the emotion, where in your body you feel it, and what thoughts are associated with it. By becoming more aware of our emotions, we can reduce their impact on us. As Dan Siegel says, name it to tame it. Resilience is not only about managing the emotional responses, but also the physical responses. As we've mentioned, emotions are very physically embodied, and this is a result of the body's stress response system. As humans, we're wired for survival, and this is what's been allowed us to survive so long as a species. The body's stress response system developed in early humans as a response to the reality that we lived in at the time. This created the fight or flight response. Today, we're less likely to encounter lions and tigers and bears, but this fight and flight response is still wired within us. So instead, it may kick in when we experience a bill coming through the door that we don't believe we have the resources to deal with. However, the body is unable to make a distinction between bills and bears, so the same responses are likely to be triggered. Over the rest of this workshop, we'll be introducing you to 7 skills to help you develop resilience. So first, we're going to look at what a skill is. A skill is the ability to master a process or task, and this can take place in many areas of life. For example, can you drive a car or ride a bike? Can you bake a cake? Can you knit a scarf and write a poem? The process of learning is based on the idea that the brain physically changes in response to new stimuli and new experiences. This is called neuroplasticity. For example, taxi drivers have a much larger spatial recognition than the average person, and the part of the brain called the hippocampus is actually larger. This shows us that the brain is not fixed, but is constantly optimizing itself, changing as we develop new skills. Learning a new skill involves 4 main steps. The first is in focusing and concentrating on new information. The second is practicing, repeating the skill so that it becomes more familiar and more comfortable. The third is creating routine, where you're able to perform the task without even thinking about it. The fourth is teaching, which requires us to understand the performance in a new way. For example, if you were to bake a cake, step 1 would be to learn the ingredients and the actual steps of baking your cake. The second would be practicing that and making all the mistakes along the way. The third would be baking a cake and not even thinking about it anymore. And the fourth would be starting to teach those steps to those around you. The first skill we're going to address is mindset. Mindset is a collection of thoughts and beliefs that help us make sense of the world and ourselves. It affects how we think, how we feel, and what we do. 2 common mindsets include the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. The fixed mindset might say, if I fail, I'm no good. And I'm either good at something or I'm not. Whereas the growth mindset might say something like, I can learn through failure, and I can learn anything through perseverance and effort. This explains why 2 people can go through very similar circumstances and come out with 2 very different results just because of the mindset that they have. As an exercise, look at the list of growth and fixed mindset examples that you'll find in your worksheets. Think about a challenge that you have at the moment and identify what your mindset is around this particular challenge. If you were to start shifting your mindset, what changes might you notice? Mindfulness is a great tool when it comes to understanding more about our mindset. Most of the time we're on autopilot. We might get upset or depressed about things, but not really know exactly why. Mindfulness allows us to pause and start recognizing what's going on internally so that we can start understanding our own mindsets. Mindfulness is a different way of paying attention to what's going on inside and outside of us. It allows us to observe what's going on without judging or trying to make anything different. This is something that we all have the capacity to develop. Just by attending to what's happening, we can start to change our relationship with the outside world and with our inner selves. This is done by stepping back and just staying objective to what's going on. A good mindful exercise is to connect with your senses. So in this moment, I'd like to ask you to find 3 things that you can see and just give it a name. 3 things that you can hear, and again, to just name them. And 3 physical sensations. This is an exercise that you can do at any moment. You may want to incorporate it as you go for a walk. You may want to incorporate it as you eat your next meal. In your course pack, you'll find downloadable mindfulness exercises, including the breath meditation, where your breath becomes the focal point for your attention, and the body scan, where you can become more aware of what's going on in your body, as well as other exercises. As you practice these mindfulness activities more, you may notice that your anxiety levels start to reduce. Whilst mindfulness allows us to become more aware of our thoughts, feelings, and behaviours, cognitive behavioural therapy allows us to actively change our beliefs and behaviours. Our thoughts, feelings, beliefs, and behaviours are intimately connected. CBT helps us change how we think and what we do. When CBT activities are implemented consistently, they can help us feel better and live a life that really matches our values. So do you remember that activity we did at the beginning with the notebook, where you became more aware of your emotions and triggering events? That exercise came from CBT. Do you remember that activity we did at the beginning with the notebook, where we became more familiar with the emotions and triggering events in our lives? That activity came from CBT. CBT can help us identify situations. These could be problems or events that cause troubles in our lives. CBT can help us identify the thoughts that we've associated with these situations and the feelings that we feel when these situations arise. We can check in with the physiology and what's going on in the body and the actions that are the consequences. That's not the case because consequences are separate.
Oh, that's great.
Do you remember that activity at the beginning that we did with your notebook, as we became more familiar with the emotions and the triggering events in your lives? That exercise was informed by CBT. CBT can help us identify troubling situations in our lives. These could be events or problems. Through that, we can explore the thoughts that are associated with these situations and the feelings. We can look at the physiology, what's going on in the body. We can explore the actions that leads us to take. And finally, we can explore the overall consequences, the results of all these aspects. A CBT exercise to put this model into practice is the ABC model. A stands for activating event or situation. This is the event that's causing problems in your life. B refers to the beliefs and behaviours that you might have associated with this situation. And C are the consequences. Think of a situation in your life at the moment that may be challenging. For example, we might choose something like an interview. This is the activating event. We might hold beliefs that the interviewer is judging us as a person rather than just our skills. As a result, we might feel stressed and we might not look after ourselves before the interview as much as we could. The consequence is that maybe we don't feel prepared, maybe we're stressed out, and maybe we're a bit rigid in the interview. If we were to start changing aspects about this, we might explore different beliefs. For example, we might say the interviewer is just examining our skills. They're not judging us as an entire person. We might also say that the company needs us as much as we need them. As we explore these new beliefs, we may start to look after ourselves differently, and our behaviours might change, leading to different consequences. So if you were to change some of the beliefs in your triggering situation, what might they be to create different results? To recap this section on mindset, we've looked at what mindset is and how it impacts resilience. We've looked at the growth mindset and the fixed mindset, and we've looked at tools such as mindfulness and CBT so that we can become aware and we can change beliefs and behaviours. We all have things that are truly important to us. These help inspire us, help us make daily decisions, and help us live lives that are truly meaningful. The problem is that when we feel overwhelmed, we lose track of what's really important to us, and suddenly our need to survive kicks in. So we stop living lives that really match our values. We can also lose track of our values when we want people to like us, when we lose our boundaries and let other people make decisions about our values for us, or when we feel uncomfortable and we're just desperate to feel comfortable again. As we start exploring your values, we can look at what's most important to you. What do you want your life to be about? And what qualities do you want to cultivate as an individual? Values are our deepest desires about how we want to relate to the world, ourselves, and other people. They act like a compass, creating a current running beneath our lives, helping us make decisions in daily life. Values act like a compass, guiding and motivating us through our lives. When we see people working particularly hard for something that may involve sacrifices, we can see that there's a value guiding them, something that's really deep and meaningful for them. Values are incredibly personal. They're neither right nor wrong, and it doesn't matter what anyone else does. The important point is that you know what your values are. Let's say you're the author of your own life. You can choose the settings, you can choose the people that you spend time with, and you can choose the activities and the passions that really motivate you. As we start exploring what your values are, let's go back to your notebook. Let's explore what your truths are and what really lights you up. And as you start exploring these questions, look at why these things are important to you. We can also explore the activities that you're engaged in that you might not actually enjoy, but you pursue anyway. For example, if you're in a job that you really don't like, but you continue at it anyway, it may be that you're valuing financial security or looking after your family. So start getting a fresh perspective on those old things that you do but you don't really enjoy. When it comes to values, reflection and action are just as important as each other. So as you start to uncover what your values are, start thinking about how and where in your life you can include more of your values. Let's continue to explore your values. Let's imagine it's your 80th birthday party. Your friends and family are there and they're about to give speeches. What do you want them to say about you? What do you want them to say about your life and the role that you play in their life? Let's imagine it's now 10 years in the future and you are rich and famous and wealthy. What do you do now? What is your life like? And how do you treat those people around you? If you're still unsure about which values are important to you, you'll find a list of values in your resource pack. Go through the list and highlight 20 of the most important values. When you've done that, narrow this down to 10. Now narrow down to 5. Which 5 strike you as more important? Now that we've explored some of these core values, we're going to explore how you can bring them more into your life. What's the smallest thing that you can do to align your behavior to these values? In the next 24 hours, what can you do to really bring these core values to life? For example, if love is one of your core values, how can you show more love to those around you? The choice point is another useful tool that we can use in every moment to decide whether our actions are congruent with our values. In any moment, before any decision, before any action, we can ask, is this behavior congruent with my values? Does it match who I want to become as a person? In essence, does it help me move towards or away from my values? You now see an image that represents the choice point. It may be useful to think about this image in any moment as you're making these decisions. As a recap to values, we've looked at what values are and the sense of meaning and purpose they can bring to your life. Remember, they aren't goals, but general life directions. They are the precursor to goals that help guide your decisions. They help you stay motivated even when things are hard. We've really looked at what your values are and how you can start implementing them in your life so that your life is fully aligned with your values. As a recap on values, we've looked at what values are and the sense of purpose and meaning they can bring to your life. Remember, values are not goals, they're precursors to goals, helping guide all your decisions. We've looked at what your values are and how we can start implementing them so that your life is fully aligned with what's important to you, so that you can stay motivated even when things are hard.